Okay. Rewrite the expression using rational exponent notation. So something like 8, they give us the fifth root of 8. And I want to rewrite that with rational exponents. So this would be 8 raised to the 1 over 5. So whatever the root is on the bottom of the fraction. If I have something like 10, though, where it's the fifth root of y plus 2 squared, so the stuff that's inside is being squared, and I'm taking the fifth root of it all, anything that's being raised to a power, the power goes on top, root goes on the bottom, so this will become y plus 2 raised to the 2 over 5. We can also work the other way where they can give us like what I have written in blue and work back to the original. So number 14, we've got x to the 7 over 6. So how would I write that in radical notation? So I want it in radical notation. So I want it to look like what, like this.
Would it be the 6 on the outside and the radical x raised to the 7?
Yep. So the 6th root of x raised to the 7th. And so like in number 10, we had to have the parentheses because it was on the whole thing. Obviously with x, since it's just like a singular term, we don't need parentheses. But if it was, multiple terms, we would need to have that on there. Find the indicated real nth root or roots of a. So this will be using that chart kind of. But honestly, this stuff is just going to kind of just be like what makes sense. Like it's not, you don't necessarily need to look at the chart. Just think logically what makes sense for this situation. So 16, they tell us that n is equal to 3 and a is equal to negative 27. And I'm trying to find the real nth root of that number. So a is what's going to go under the radical, whatever n is the root that I'm taking. So this is going to be the cube root of negative 27. So, anybody know what the cube root of negative 27 is? Negative 3. Now, the stuff that's different about, like when we have higher powered radicals, okay, so like this is a cube root or like a fifth root or something like that, the odd ones, the negative doesn't cause a problem. But if it was like the fourth root and there was a negative underneath, that would still have an I in it, just like when we have a normal square root. Okay, so I can't have a negative under the radical if it's an even root, but I can if it's an odd root, and it would just come out like that. Cool. Okay. 18, n is 3, a is 343. So I've got the cube root of 343. Anybody know what that is? It's bigger than 5 and less than 10. It is 7. All right. Some of these say to evaluate without a calculator, and then there's some that say to do it with a calculator, or like that you can use a calculator, but you shouldn't really need them for any of this, to be honest. So 22. If I have 8 raised to the 1/3, I can rewrite this as if I need to. Now, if you can just see it, you can go straight to the answer. But this could be also written as the cube root of 8. And what would that be? 2. Uh, 24. The cube root of negative 125. Yep, -5. So whatever the sign is inside of an odd radical is going to be on it. The even ones, obviously, like I said, can't have a negative inside of there. 28. The cube root of -64 raised to the 4th. So I would always start on the innermost stuff and then work out, because typically makes it easier. If I have an option, I will always take a root first before raising it to a power, because obviously roots make the number smaller, powers are going to make it bigger. So that's my other piece of advice. But what would the cube root of -64 be? -4. So -4, and notice that's in parentheses. Okay, that's important. And then it's being raised to the 4th power. And what would that be? Six. Yep. 256. Okay. Now, this is why I said it was important, because the fact that this parentheses is on the whole thing means that that negative is being raised to the 4th power as well. Okay. If it wasn't, then obviously the negative wouldn't be, and then our answer would have been negative. How about this one? 1/81 to the -3/4. What do I need to do with this one? So what is the first thing I do when I see a negative exponent?
Move it to the top.
Move it. So I'm going to do 81 to the 3/4. Now, what does the 3 and the 4 tell me that I'm going to be doing to 81? Okay, or well, what does the 4 tell me I'm going to do? It's on the bottom. Not divide, but... What are we doing in this section? Taking the what?
Cube, or the root.
The 4th root, okay. The 4 tells me I'm going to take the 4th root, and then what does the 3 tell me? Cube it. So I'm going to take the 4th root, and then I'm going to cube it. So this is going to be the 4th root of 81 cubed. And that's, again, the order I would do it in. I wouldn't cube 81 first, because that sounds miserable, especially since this is in a no calculator section. So what is the 4th root of 81? 3. So this will be 3 cubed, which is
27.
27. All right. I want us to practice doing this on our calculator just to make sure you can type it in case you ever see it on like an SAT or something like that. I know y'all aren't taking yours tomorrow, but my mind is in SAT mode because a bunch of the kids are taking it tomorrow in the junior class. All right, so 34 is the fifth root of 32,768. Obviously not something you would want to do in your head. So you're going to go to math, and then you're going to arrow down to the one, it's option 5 for me, but it's an X and then a radical. You may have to arrow to the left and overwrite the X depending on what version of the calculator you have. Yeah, see, mine took the last thing I had. So overwrite that with a 5 if it puts something there. Sometimes it just puts a box and you have to type it in, but. So the fifth root of 32,768. And if you get a decimal, it says to round to 2 decimal places. So that one actually worked out that it was an even one, or like came out even, but that would be equal to 8. Something like 44, 1,974 raised to the 2 over 7. So I want to show you another little trick here before you just go typing this in. Obviously, we could rewrite this in radical form, but since this is in a calculator section, you can do this a different way as well. So if you type in the 1974, and then because I'm raising it to a fraction, I'm going to use this little caret button over here on the right side. Now, I need to put in 2 divided by 7, which I can either do as 2 divided by 7 like that, and it'll give me an answer as 8.74, or I can do it this way, okay? So if you hit alpha, so for me it's green button, I don't know if everybody's green, but alpha and then Y1, you're going to see options come up that look like fractions. So it'll say like N over D, that's numerator over denominator. So if I click that option, it actually puts a fraction bar there. Now, not as big of a deal for this in terms of doing it that way. But if you were doing other things in your calculator and needed fractions, that's a good way to put it in. And I may have shown y'all that before, but some classes I've shown it to them 5 times and they still don't know that they can do that on their calculator. So I just like to show you to do a little refresher on that. But anyways, 8.74. Any questions about any of this? I feel like it's overall probably pretty easy, but I'm going to give you a few problems, not a lot. You should be able to finish them probably in less than 10 minutes, which is, we have way more time than that in this class still. But problems are going to be 7, 13, 15, 19, 25, 27, 31, and then calculator ones, let's do 41 and 45.
You scroll up.
Yeah. To the notes part?
Yes.
Yeah. Let me